If you're looking to flat tow your Jeep Grand Cherokee L, today we have a 2024 and we're going to be installing the Blue Ox Baseplate, which is a great first start to get your flat tow setup on your Jeep and down the road. My name is Brad and I'll be taking a look at the baseplate as well as showing you how to get it installed. The baseplate is going to be the structural mounting point for all of your flat tow components so you can safely go down the road, and the baseplate attaches to the frame of the vehicle, so it's going to be structurally sound. So really, a lot of it's going to be hidden behind the rear fascia, but again, I mentioned it has mounting points for your components. So here we have it installed, and to tell you the truth, this is a pretty clean install overall, because as we have it, our removable arms make it practically flush with the grille. Our safety chain loops stick out just enough to be able to hook them on, and our 6-pole bracket also has a spot for our breakaway switch, and all of this looks really nice and easy to hook up in the process. So you get to maintain a nice clean look when you're not flat towing, but also it's still very simple to get everything hooked up. The arms are super easy to get in place. You just slide them in and just quarter turn with pressure and it'll snap into place. It's also super easy to remove. You'll just pull the spring-loaded latch, give it a quarter turn, and that'll come out. So to get this hooked up, we'll first get these in place and I'll show you how to hook up the rest of it. So the first thing I like to do when hooking all of these up is just start at one side, work your way over, and as long as you have something connected to each of your spots, you'll be good to go. Now you'll notice that this is going to be a specific attachment here. If you have a Blue Ox baseplate, it's going to work obviously directly with the Blue Ox arms, but we have a Roadmaster Nighthawk, and predominantly theirs attaches with a larger pin and a slightly different style. So we actually were able to get adapters, and that way we can still hook up to this. So it doesn't matter what tow bar you have, you're going to be able to get those Blue Ox adapters to be able to go onto your tow bar. But again, if you do have a Blue Ox tow bar, you will be good to go. So we'll pin that up. We'll get our safety chains hooked up, our diode wiring, our breakaway switch. Once everything's hooked up, you'll just get your vehicle in flat tow mode, make sure that your braking system's ready to go, and then you can hit the road. So when it comes to base plates, there's a lot of different choices. You may want to go with one brand because it attaches to your tow bar that you already have, but again, you have options, and this one is really easy to get installed overall. There is going to be some drilling required, there is going to be some cutting, but that's kind of the nature of almost all base plates. It's kind of, you are going to have to make some modifications, and this one really wasn't too bad to do. But it's also something that while you're doing your base plate, you're going to want to knock out the rest of your components because you'll have the fascia off. So I highly, highly recommend making sure that you have all of your components ready to go to get this vehicle flat towed and just set aside. Give yourself maybe 2 to 3 days and you'll be ready to rock, especially using our videos to get them installed. But if you watch it and think, maybe that's more than I want to tackle, I totally get it. Taking a fascia off the vehicle and modifying things a little bit might be out of your wheelhouse or something you've never done before, even if you're handy, but don't let that hinder you from getting your vehicle flat tow ready. So if that's the case, you can find someone close to you to get that all installed for you by using our dealer locator. Let them take care of the installation. That way you can be flat towing in no time. But again, if you're mechanically inclined and you're willing to take on a challenge, this one really isn't bad, and I'm going to walk you through step by step to make sure you get it installed. Before we get into the installation, there's a few things that you're going to want to take note of. And first one is going to be, there's a lot of hardware that's coming off of this vehicle in order to get the fascia off and our base plate in. So with that being said, have a nice organized spot to keep all your hardware. It'll really make a lot of the reinstallation a lot easier. And also, with that being said, have a nice spot to keep your fascia safe while it's off, because this is a really good time to knock out the rest of the components. A lot of times, running wires to all those components on the base plate is a lot easier with the fascia not attached, and that way you can get a clean run. So I do recommend, if you're doing your base plate, you should really knock out the rest of your components at the same time. Now, a big majority of getting the base plate installed on this vehicle is going to be getting the fascia off, and there's quite a bit to start with hardware-wise, and the first thing we'll do is open up our hood, and we're going to pull off this panel. It's just a series of plastic push pins that you'll see. It's just this center section for now, and there's a slot on one side of the plastic push pin. So if you have a flathead screwdriver, you can wedge that underneath, and then you should be able to remove the entire plastic push pin. If the top separates, just keep hold of both pieces, and then once you pop out the bottom, just put this back in so they stay attached. We'll go through and get the remaining ones off and this panel removed. Now once we get the panel off, that's going to allow us to gain access to the T40 Torx screws that we're going to be removing. So you'll find that we have 6 of them. We're going to get those taken out now. And we're also going to have a 10mm screw on each side that's located right here by our hood stop, so we'll get those taken out. And we're going to go to each of the wheel wells, and there's going to be 5 screws that we're going to remove, and they're going to be an 8mm socket. So kind of by your mud flaps, there's going to be 2 that are down here, and then as you work your way up, you'll just start removing those, and that way we can peel back the inner fender liner to get the rest of the fascia off. Now you'll see I have an electric ratchet, and it is tight here, so if you need extra space, what you can do is hop in the vehicle, key it to the on position, turn the wheel, and that's really going to open it up for you, and you can do that on the other side as well. So if you're struggling to get those out easily, you can do that. With those screws removed, we're going to grab our wheel well liner, and you can kind of just grab below and start peeling it back because it's tucked into the fascia a little. And as you work your way up, you're going to find that we have a 10mm screw. It's right here where the fascia meets the front quarter panel, and it's angled down a little bit. So it's kind of tricky to get to. I ended up using a swivel on the other side to get it removed. You may want to resort to that, but I think if you have a ratchet and socket, you should be able to get it. Now it's time to attack the underbody panel, and the first spots that we're going to attack are going to be the small screws or 8mm socket to get these removed. Just go along this lower portion. There should be a total of 5. Now grab your 10mm socket, and there's going to be 2 bolts in this inset, 1 on each side, so we'll get those taken down. Now tucked behind the front air dam, you'll see kind of by the tires, there's going to be an 8mm screw that's located here as well as the other side. Now grab your belly pan and just kind of pull that down. And if you wanted to remove it, that is going to be something later on as you're running wires down through the firewall. It is a lot easier with this out of the way. So if you want to completely remove it, by all means, now's a good time to do that. We're going to go to this notch that we have. This is going to have a 10mm bolt. So we're going to get that removed, and there's going to be 1 more on the other side. We also have this plastic push pin, and we'll have 1 of those on each side as well. So you can get that popped out. Then we'll head to the passenger side where we're going to need to unplug our washer bottle line for the front squirter, as well as 2 electrical connections. Now, when you separate this line, it's very possible you're going to have washer fluid leaking out. So just be prepared for that. If you have a way to plug it, that's kind of not a bad way to do it. So what I ended up doing is I have a 4-pole plug, and I just kind of cap that over. So if you have a rubber plug or something that you can put on here, that's just going to prevent it from leaking out. So with that separated, we're going to find our electrical connections. There is 1 large one that's located here, and then there's going to be another one that's a little bit farther forward that's smaller. So the first plug, you're going to want to reach for the snap, and this white piece is a locking tab. So just pull that back, and it can be a little bit tricky, but if you push on that tab, that'll raise that clip, and you can get this one separated. To find the other one, I'm going to kind of have to follow this wire and see where that lands. But pretty tight here, so again, if you do need to move your wheel or tire, by all means, go ahead and do that. I did find it, so this small thinner cable, you can see here, follow that up, and the plug is mounted with a plastic push. So if you want to pry that off, just a little clip here, that'll make it a lot easier to get this separated. You're going to push on this tab and then get that separated. Now on the driver's side, there's a similar plug to the other style, and there may be another electrical connection. I'm not seeing it currently, and it may kind of depend on the trim that you have. So as we pull the fascia off, we can determine whether or not there is that extra plug. And with that being said, we're going to want to have a nice safe spot for our fascia, but also grab someone to help you along. And something that Blue Ox didn't put in the instruction manual, but you'll need to do is for this fascia to come off, you'll see that this wheel well liner is kind of in the way. So we're going to want to get this popped out, and you can actually reach on the back side, and there's going to be a bunch of clips. And what I like to do is put a socket on them, and I'll show you that trick here shortly. So the white plastic pins in conjunction with some snap pins are what are holding this in place. So those white ones that pop in, they're kind of like a plastic push pin. If you grab like an 8mm socket and just slide this over and then put a little bit of pressure, a lot of times that'll pinch that together for you, making it a lot easier to get this to be removed. So you can see I don't have to really fight against them. So as you pop this out, it is very possible that these clips will slide out like we have here. And you're going to want to pop this back far enough to where you can see the fascia split from the quarter panel. And what I like to do, just to give us a little space, is take a bundled up rag or shop towel and just press this in here. You don't want to pull back too far on here. It can crease your paint, which unfortunately is going to be permanent. But the main thing is we have this popped out enough because we're going to want to grab on the back side to start pulling the fascia off. Now before we get there though, I am going to run some painter's tape along the edges. That's going to really help prevent any chips or scratches from those corners making contact while we pull it off, but also when we put it back on. Now to get the fascia removed, we're going to start on each end and we're going to pop those, and then having that extra set of hands, we'll work our way towards the middle. To get this portion out, you're going to find there's going to be resistance. Pretty easy though. What you can do is just pull down on here, and that should alleviate the pressure, making this super easy to slide out. And then just slowly work your way, putting pressure along the seam, and we should be able to get the clips to pop out. Now if you need to grab on the lower portion of the fascia, sometimes that'll help loosen it up. But again, start on both sides and then work your way towards the middle. So now definitely grab your extra set of hands. I got Matt to help me here, and we have our cart set up to put this aside. So you know, get these clips popped out, but what you're going to see up top is this little ring. This is just a retention ring. If you lift up the plastic a little and then take this portion and slide it up over the hood stop, it might take a little bit of pressure, but once that's kind of popped forward, that's really going to help this fascia come off as well. So again, as I mentioned, you can grab the bottom portion to kind of loosen it for some of those clips, but should come off fairly easily. Now it's time to remove our bumper beam, and this is not going to be reinstalled. Our base plate's going to live in the same spot that this beam exists, so once you remove it, you can kind of do whatever you want with it, but again, it's not going to go back on the vehicle. And to get it removed, you're going to want a 16mm socket as well as a 10. So we have our bolt here, and there's another one that's tucked up here. We'll get those taken out, and then this 10mm nut on both sides. Now we also have this plastic push pin that's putting this small just air dam piece in place. We're going to pop that off as well. Now there's one more plastic push pin that we need to attack, and you can see the back side of it. It's kind of hard to see on the other side. So if you push in on this one, that should separate it, and that way we can get this portion kind of taken around, and it's surrounding the bumper beam, so we need to get it removed. And I may try to get it from this end. It's just kind of tight here, but take your time until you get that removed. Now you're going to want to grab a reciprocating saw or any way to really cut some plastic, and I've marked this out. This whole section, eventually our base plate's going to go and wrap around here, so we need to make room for that. So I've marked this out, and it goes with this molding down here, and then I would say a little bit over a finger length above this top tab. Now you got to be careful because we have our horn attached and the electrical plug's in the way. So you can remove this plug. It's got a locking tab, and just push that in, and you should get a straight shot. If you want to, you can also move the horn. There's a 10mm bolt, really up to you. So at this point, I'm going to cut this section out, and it's very possible later on that we may have to account a little bit more. So if you cut a little bit extra up or down, it's not the end of the world. It might actually be good. So I'll get my saw, and I'm going to just start trimming this out. And the main thing when you're cutting, you want this as flush with this portion as possible. So we have a little bit sticking out, no big deal. I'll come back with my grinding wheel and I'm just gonna clean this up to where it's flush. And then after that, this is raw exposed metal. So you'll see that the outside edge was plastic, but that goes into this metal portion. So spraying this raw metal means that it's gonna really prevent it from rust and corrosion long term. So if you have black spray paint, clear coat, whatever that's handy, it's all going to be hidden once the fascia is put back on, but that's going to help protect our vehicle. At this point, we need to grab a hole saw because on the passenger side, you'll see that 3 inches below this mounting point, we have a wide open hole. But on the driver's side, that's not the case. And this is where we're going to be feeding a lot of our hardware once we drill out holes in our frame. So this is going to be a pretty crucial spot for us to be able to get that hardware in place. So we are going to recreate that on the other side. So measuring exactly 3 inches down, centered up. I got my punch there. I'm going to drill out a pilot hole first, and then I'm going to come back with an 1.5 inch hole saw. Now we can remove that shroud that we removed the plastic push pins on completely. There is another plastic push pin here. So we'll just get these popped out. And when our base plate goes in place, the crossbar is going to go through this section of our air dam. So we do need to trim this back where I marked out. Now in the instructions, they had it cut out here, but they said trim as marked. I'm going to go a little bit larger. Just from history, I've learned that you do generally need a little bit more space than you think. And I was going to use this is actually working. A utility knife cuts through this plastic fairly decent. Whatever, again, method you have is going to be the best option, but we'll get this cut out, and then we're also going to do the exact same mirrored image on the other side. So get this trimmed out. Now we're going to get our base plate in place, and you're going to want 2 of the factory bolts that we use to remove the bumper beams, so those 16mm ones, because we're going to bolt this lightly in place. And the main thing that we're going to be doing is really finding a template for us to drill out. So you may want an extra set of hands here, but from here we'll just kind of guide this. And now's a good time to figure out too if you need to trim any excess stuff for this to line up, whether it be on the air dam or the frame portion. So we'll have a spot where the stud, that factory stud, will go over, and that's going to be nice to kind of support that for us as we grab our factory bolt. Now, something that we're going to want to do from here on out with all of our hardware is put a little bit of Loctite on here. So as we start to tighten it all down, there's really no worry that this is going to back out on us long term. Now, this is a good chance because we have these aligned. You may have to raise that base plate up just a little bit to get the holes aligned, but also we're going to be putting in these new longer bottom bolts, split washer and flat washer. There's only 2 bolts like this with a smaller split washer and those washers in the kit, so kind of hard to mess up here. But we'll get this put in place here, and I'm going to start tightening it by hand, and then we'll come back, make sure that everything is aligned properly, and then we can start tightening them down. And to get this snug down, I'm going to use a 17mm socket. And what I found is using the center stud as kind of a reference, tolerances may be a little bit different from side to side, but getting the stud kind of centered up, I think, is what drew this one in nice and clean on the other side. So it's a good chance to make sure that we're setting ourselves up with a nice and square base plate. So once I get this snug down by hand, I'm going to come back and hit it with the impact, and then come back with a torque wrench to make sure that these are properly torqued. Now the torque wrench really does a good job of making sure that it's perfectly tightened down. So you are going to need this for a few more steps as we go along. And if you don't have a torque wrench, you can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. Torque settings are going to be found in the instruction manual. You're just going to refer to which hardware you're using and then the chart that they have, and adjust your torque wrench accordingly. That way we can get this proper. Now with this bolted up, you should see that you have a bolt head right in the circle here, and everything should be nice and aligned. And these 4 holes on each side are going to be the template to drill out, and we're eventually going to feed our hardware in through these openings that we made. So Highly recommend a really good drill bit. I'm going to start with a smaller one and then work my way up to a 1/2 inch. So we'll go through each of these holes on both sides and get them drilled out. Now, when you're enlarging these holes, I do recommend kind of walking the bit a little bit to clear off some of the burrs, because what happens is when we start to put the hardware in and those whiz nuts, a lot of times if there's flashing or burrs, it's going to keep that whiz nut from getting close enough to start the threads, and it really adds to a lot of stress with trying to get these all aligned. So if you can kind of clear those burrs off, you might even be able to take a file and push it through the access hole. It's really going to help us out. Now, once those are enlarged, what we're going to do is grab our spacer bracket, and this is going to go onto the more forward side here, and this will just slide in, and it's going to rest on the bottom one, and then the top one should align, leaving a tab that's up here. So what we'll do is get our first bottom one in so this can rest on it. And so you'll grab your bolt, you'll put a split washer and thread lock on here, and grab a whiz nut. And what we're going to try to do is feed this down to this hole, get this aligned, and then get the thread started. Now, with that being said, you want this as flush as possible for it to start. So if you need to put quite a few bends on this, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. But we'll get this one started, and then we're going to come back and get this top one once we get that spacer in. So get 2 of these ready for each side with that split washer and your whiz nut. And you may need to adjust the whiz nut a little bit, quite a bit actually, to get these to start. They are a little bit tricky, but once started, I'll drop this into place. And then just make sure that that forked section is resting on the bolt. That should align with this hole, and we'll get this one started. A lot of times getting this started too, it's going to help getting a flashlight to shine in this hole so you can get it really dialed in to where it's at. This is kind of a tricky operation to do if you've never done it before. So don't lose your cool. Just take your time, get these all started. Now, once you get these knocked out and you're feeling good, we're going to be doing the back holes, and this is a further run with these, so a little bit more expert mode, but just again, take your time. A lot of times if you have a flashlight, guide it to the hole and then look straight through, make sure that this is squared up. A lot of times you're going to find that if you put a bend right at the nut where it's welded on, that's going to kind of get that flush when it's in place. So again, you may have to make quite a few of bends with this. You can do it by hand or just grab a pair of pliers, but get these all dialed in so you can get the bolt started. Now, to feed this last one in is tricky, especially with the other 3 wires. So if you need to bend those out of the way, by all means, you can do that. I have all 4 started, so I'll get my other side dialed in, get them at the same point, and then we're going to come back and tighten and torque all these down. Now, when it comes to tightening these down, do not use power tools because it can break off that small little tack weld that they have, and then you're left trying to get this torqued down properly. So I'm going to just go directly with my torque wrench and a 3/4 inch socket. You're going to find those torque settings again in the instruction manual. So we'll go through and get these all torqued down. Once everything's torqued down, we can either cut all of these and, they're not going to really cause any issue. But if you wanted to pop them out, what I've found is if you kind of hit them with a hammer, sometimes it'll shock it loose. Sometimes you can get a pry bar next to it. But really what always works is grabbing a set of vice grips and just grabbing and twisting. And a lot of times they'll pop off. You can also just wiggle them side to side for a bit, and you can knock that weld loose. So it's really up to you. But we'll get these to where they're going to be flush. So whatever method you choose to do, get them all removed. So if you can't get them completely off, I just cut mine. You can take pliers and bend them in. Now at this point, our base plate is officially installed. We do want to take our safety cables and wrap it around using a quick link. And we're going to be using this mounting point. And the goal here is to wrap the cable around the frame rail find a pocket around here, and get it attached. So the thought process is if all of this hardware was to fail, this is still going to be wrapped around the frame so it doesn't completely detach. And we have one set up for each side, so I'll get mine routed and then show you how it looks. So the way that I did it is if you go through this bottom portion, you can find a hole back here and just wrap it around this frame rail. So you can kind of go through here as well, but the main thing is we have a body mount and a frame rail, so if this was to pull, it'll be fine. Now something I'm going to do is just take some zip ties and clean this up, make sure that it's not, wide, that way it's not pressing on anything. These are kind of a last ditch, if everything was to fail kind of. So I really don't foresee these ever having to be used, so the zip tie out of the way is going to be fine. Something else you're going to want to take in as you're doing this, make sure you're not going to be rubbing against any hard lines or anything moving in the engine bay. So I'll get my other side set up, and really that's going to do it for the installation portion. Now I got my braking system and diode wiring all installed. It's time to get our fascia put back on and trimmed out to fit our components. And one of the first things that I ran into is this base plate. It really is centered up where the 6-pole is, as well as the bracket that's included to mount up your breakaway switch, which is totally cool if you live in a state that doesn't have front plates. And the reason being is, well, you're going to be cutting out a portion of the grill here for our components to pop out, and our license plate bracket, it just uses some T25 Torx bits and drills into the bumper like this, so that's going to block everything. And as far as the plate, you really don't want to mount it up here because you have your adaptive cruise control. So if you are in a state that has front plates, and you want to stay legal, your best bet might be getting an aftermarket license plate bracket to relocate that somewhere to where it's not going to cause any issues for you. For now, I'm going to have to take this off. I really don't have another option. So if you do have this, take it off because we're going to be cutting out portions here as we mock this up. Now, the best way to get this trimmed out properly is going to be to get this mocked up by holding up our fascia. So what you can do is just lift up this tab, and these locking, you might probably remember these that kind of snap in. If you get that to hold in place, it's going to be a little bit off because it's not going to want to cinch up properly just because of the base plate. And that's okay, because as we start to trim it out, it's going to be able to slowly work its way in, and you know that you'll have clearance. But this is going to allow you to hold it in place to be able to mark that out and trim it, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So I'm not hooking up any of our electrical for now. We're just trying to figure out where we need to trim. And so as I kind of hold this in place, the first thing that's hitting is going to be our safety chain loops. So already I know that I'm going to be chopping this portion out for it to slide through. And the same goes for our breakaway switch will be the next thing. So I can cut this portion out, that'll draw in, and then we'll work our way to the 6-pole until we get the whole thing drawn in to the receiver arm. So unfortunately, it's going to require quite a bit of chopping of this honeycomb grill, but as you kind of trim a little bit as you go and draw it in, you're going to get the cleanest fit possible. So I recommend if you need, you can take a paint marker and mark those out, but when cutting this, I'd recommend using a multi-tool. They're really nice and easy to make a clean cut on. If not, a Dremel works fine. But just take your time. This is kind of the last little bit to really send it home to make it look good. I'm pretty happy overall with our finished product, and I did notice that as you get the breakaway switch, your 6-pole cutout, and your safety chain loops, you can get those plastic snaps to go into the quarter panel, and that's really going to set exactly where it's going to be. And then cutting this out, you do want to go maybe a little bit extra. I might end up notching this because as you put the arms in, this portion is where it snaps into place. And so if it's going to hinder it from locking, you might just want to open this up a little bit more. I'm going to test with my arms to make sure that's the case. But finished product, again, you can always cut off a little bit more here or there, but try to stay as small cuts as possible. And then hopefully it'll end up looking pretty decent. And then from here, we're going to want to make sure we plug everything back in. So the horns, that if you unplug those, get those in. We have a plug on the driver's side, 2 plugs on the passenger side, as well as the windshield washer squirter. So just make sure that everything's put back together, and then it's just gonna be the reverse order that we took everything off. So we'll get this all put in, and then from here, I mean, we got all of our components, we're ready to flat tow. And that's really gonna do it for the look and installation of the Blue Ox Baseplate on a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Hopefully this video helped you get this installed or determine if this was something that you didn't want to tackle yourself. I try to give as much tips and tricks as I can to really help you get this installed and keep you happy. But if you find tips that worked for you, or maybe some better tricks that I didn't have, leave a comment. I love to actually find better ways to make videos, and that way I can help neighbors just like you get the best content possible and get you out there on the road. And also, when you're done with it, show off your work. Let's see how it turned out, and maybe send a picture of your setup. Either way, thanks for joining us for the look and installation of the Blue Ox Baseplate on a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. My name is Brad. Thanks for watching.